one and a two and a 1, 2, 3. Woo!
2, 3. Woo!
Whee!
Chicka-chicka-chicka. Bow. Hi, Allison.
I'm Matt. We're back with our bestest pal, Jenny. Here's some weird things. A few weeks back,
This one's good.
Ginny D put out a fantastic video that we did a live reaction to about playing D&D and other TTRPGs when you have ADHD. And now the sister, the accomplice to that first video, we're going to get one on have ADHD. You can still be a dungeon master.
Yes.
Who are we, though? And what qualifies us to speak on this subject?
Allison, number one, numero uno, the two of us have ADHD.
It's true, we do.
Number two, we both play TTRPGs. I know that for a fact. And in fact, we host a podcast called ADHd20, which finds the intersection between TTRPGs and...
Well, you boom flipped it on me, ADHD.
and ADHD, yes.
Were you seeing if I was actively listening in that moment? That's something I feel like we've been working on lately. I passed the test.
You totally passed. You weren't even thrown for a second. But yeah, we in our podcast, we talk about a lot of the things that Ginny talks about in this video. We don't normally do reaction videos. But another one that has been super inspiring is the Dungeon Dudes, and they've jumped on the neurodivergent brain train as far as how it applies to TTRPGs. And I love the fact that Ginny and the dudes and we all say we are not doctors, so we're not qualified to diagnose you or anything, but this is a topic that is really important to us. It affects everything that we do. It's it's a major part of how we play and in a lot of ways, I think, why we play. And so I'm super psyched about this video because after the player one, which was chock-a-block full of amazing information, she teased that she might do a Game Master one, and here it is. And it's chock-a-block full of amazing ideas. So
Jenny D, also good at active listening.
So good.
Also good at having ADHD and playing TTRPGs and dungeon mastering them. The intersection of ADHD and TTRPGs is just so hot right now.
It's so hot right now. And it should be, because...
Two great tastes that taste great together. Let's shut up and let Jenny start talking, shall we?
Go for it. Yes. Amazing.
Here we go.
ADHD include difficulty focusing, staying organized, and staying still. So why do so many people who have it choose to be dungeon masters? A role where you sit at a table for hours on end, playing out complex scenarios with a textbook worth of rules in a world that only exists in your imagination. Hey friends, my name is Ginny D and I have ADHD. And yes, I am a dungeon master. It can seem contradictory, but actually for a lot of people with ADHD, running games can be easier than playing in them. The ADHD mind craves stimulation, and as a game master, you are constantly engaged because you're not just playing one character who may or may not be actively involved in what's happening, you're playing the whole world. But no matter how fun and rewarding DMing might be for someone with ADHD,
the world, Matt.
The role also comes with some challenges. Honestly, navigating all these obstacles and still running a great game is kind of like magic.
Before she goes into this amazing next thing, I'm the person she's talking about. I immediately... I started off as a player and I immediately wanted to be the game master. There was no question. I knew that it was going to fit me better, and it did. And I have more fun. And then Allison jumped in.
Wait for it. The reason that I am a game master, she actually mentions later in this very video. So we're going to wait until she gets there and talk about it then, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so stay tuned and find out why I became a GM. Pew!
Yes. Woo!
Oh my god, we're doing magic. Are we wizards?
Yeah, we are.
Let me try something.
Seriously.
I have been preparing for this moment my entire life. Okay, so we're wizards. Coping with
You're a
ADHD
wizard,
isn't
Ginny.
a skill we were born with, but we've been practicing and learning it. And there are yet more powerful coping strategies that we haven't unlocked yet. Kind of like spells. Let's see. Aha! Here we go. The Dungeon Master's ADHD Grimoire. 4 spells in this book that are essential for running games. Maybe they're new to you, or maybe you already know them, but I could help you learn to cast them at a higher level. But before we start dabbling in these
Teach me,
mysterious
Jenny, I
arts,
wanna
I have to
learn.
warn you about something. This is an unpredictable sort of magic. Everyone's experience with ADHD is different. We all face different obstacles, and something that helps one DM might not be helpful to another. This video, contrary to how it may appear, is not magic and can't solve every problem for every person. I'm just here to share some ideas and help you explore new strategies that could make DMing easier. Great!
Yes.
With that out of the way,
And that's one of my favorite things that you and I talk about a lot is even though we both have ADHD, it manifests in completely different ways sometimes, even between just the two of us, let alone all of our other neurospicy friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what's fun has been having the conversation about that rather than assuming this is like a one-size-fits-all equation. So good job, Jenny.
let's get to casting. Our first spell is Power Word Prep. Preparing for game sessions can be tough for DMs with ADHD because we often struggle with something called executive function. Executive function refers to the skills that let us take goal-directed action, basically every step between setting a goal and reaching it. That includes identifying the steps needed to complete a task, remembering those steps in order, guessing at how long they'll take, and staying on task to actually complete them. That's why DMs with ADHD might sit in front of an empty page for hours and still not get anything done, or try to read the module but understand it about as much as you understand Ancient Draconic. On the flip side, we might end up hyper-focusing or getting completely absorbed in one specific task. This might sound counterintuitive because there's a misconception that ADHD makes it difficult to focus.
Allison, do you have this particular issue?
No, I was pointing to you for that second one.
I know. I'm just wondering where do you lie on this?
I'm more like stare at the blank page for 5 hours and panic than like get sucked into it and can't think of or do anything else is what I'm more apt to be like.
Yeah.
And you, Matt?
Uh,
Do you want to talk
Yes.
about it?
all I ever want to do is talk about it. Hyperfocus is a real thing. It is a real thing, and for us, it can be good and it can be very, very bad.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've said this so many times, but I feel like every time I think, there's no such thing as ADHD, which I still do sometimes.
Weirdo.
I see Ginny, I talk to friends, and I'm like, oh yeah, the way that she is speaking about this, if you don't understand what she's speaking about, by the way, the hyperfocus as a danger, as a red flag, then you probably don't have ADHD.
Yeah.
Hyperfocus is not the same thing as flow. It's not the same thing as getting in the groove, though it can be. So it's very complicated. This is a problematic thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Where I am so wrapped up in finding the right map for a session that the players they might not even get to, that I don't get all the other things that I need to get done, like stat blocks or other monsters or other things to do. That's the danger of hyperfocus. That's what
Yeah. Now that you say that way, though, we did part 1 of an actual play for Daggerheart not too long ago. Yeah. And I realized once we got underway that I, in fact, did not have stat blocks for a major component. So guess what I did? I made them up on the spot because to your point, I had focused so much on building out this game that y'all were playing within the game and otherwise. So if anybody sees part 1 of that actual play that I am referencing, now you know my dirty little secret.
So dirty. So dirty.
In reality, ADHD makes it difficult to regulate our focus. So sometimes we can't focus.
Still
and
my
other
favorite
times
framing.
We can't stop. This means maybe the session starts in 1 hour and we haven't prepped any of the encounters for today. But we do know the last 300 years of political history for this region, complete with a meticulous timeline of events. Or we learned how to play the ukulele. So, how do we cast a magic spell to fix this? Well, every wizard knows that spells have components, and Power Word Prep has 3. The first component is thinking big picture. This doesn't just apply to individual session prep, it's also about your campaign overall. What kind of game will be easiest for you to run? This might mean setting your game in a fictional world that you already know a lot about, or in a limited area like a single city. It might mean planning to run games every 2 weeks instead of every week. Maybe it means running a pre-written adventure, so you can change stuff and add homebrew when you feel like it, but on weeks when you have low motivation, you can just fall back on the modules.
My quick my quick addendum to that though is there is another danger, however, if you choose a pre-existing module that has everything that you need and then you decide to homebrew elements of it, so that the campaign called Curse of Strahd takes close to 4 years and is still not finished. That's also something that can happen. So it's not necessarily, what were you going to say?
That definitely can happen as a player in the very campaign you're referencing. I was going to say, I actually learned very quickly in my GMing journey that it took me less time to prep my own homebrewed stuff than it did for me to use a module, because modules aren't written with our neurospicy brains in mind. And so me trying to jam myself into somebody else's world, I felt no connection to the story, no connection to the world, the places, the NPCs. Whereas when I create them myself, even though that part takes longer in game, I'm much more calm because I'm not trying to like flip to a module page and be like, what does that guy look like? What does this lady sound like, or anything else? So you might want to experiment with both if you've had severe uncomfort, either trying to homebrew everything, see what happens when you use a module, or if you've married yourself to pre-written modules as a GM so far, try one session for us that you just make up and just see, just experiment. That's all I'm saying.
Or yes, find that comfortable place,
that hybrid
in between, right? Because cut out the things that don't speak to you, or that you feel your brain wanting to change so much, but have that kind of, Barovia is rich. I can't change Barovia. It's beautiful. It's surrounded by mists. Done. Like, but what happens in there? Spoiler alert, Barovia is surrounded by mists, and you can't get out of them.
4 years in, we didn't know that. I'm just kidding. We're not moving that slow, okay?
You're not moving that slowly. What if you were? Okay, anyway.
ADHD find that they lose interest when running a long campaign with one central plot arc. For those DMs, running shorter campaigns or more episodic campaigns allows you to change up the setting and theme when you feel the urge to try something new. The next component is a system. Research has shown that having a clear, predetermined plan or routine is a crucial coping strategy for people with ADHD. Things we may normally struggle with, like remembering everything that we're supposed to be doing and prioritizing those things appropriately, can be outsourced to a system. For example, maybe you write down a checklist of all the things you need to have prepared before a session in order of importance. Maybe the most important thing for you is knowing what stat blocks you'll be using in your combat encounters. Now, when you start prepping, you know to begin with combat encounters, instead of spending 2 hours writing some extremely interesting NPCs and then realizing that you aren't prepared for the game.
Yes, this is key. Let me speak a couple of things to that, if it's all right. Number one, it is very, very important. Number two, I don't think it's a set it and forget it permanently situation.
Yeah.
ADHD Jesse has this beautiful book, and in it he says, look, you could beat yourself up if you feel bad about diving full into a system and then that system falling apart. Don't do that. Don't hurt yourself. So yes, you need a system. It is important. And my personal favorite is Mike Shea's Lazy GM Prep. And you can learn everything about Sly Flourish, Mike Shea, the Lazy GM online. That man has an incredibly simple very thorough session prep that you can adjust. But again, tear out what you don't need.
So
Systems might also include alarms and timers to keep you from losing track of
time
time.
timer.
Maybe you set a recurring calendar reminder to prep the day before your session. Maybe you track how long it takes you to prepare for a
There it
session
is.
so that you have a better idea in the future of how much time to set aside. There's no one system that works for everyone, and your prep might not necessarily look like another DM's prep. I am a verbal processor, so I get a lot more done by talking through my session plans with a friend than by writing it down. If reading is a struggle for you, use a PDF reader and listen to it instead. It's important to remember that whatever style of prep works for you, that's the correct one. Of course, no matter how good your systems and your intentions, sometimes you'll just have weeks where you're not ready. And that's natural. We may be wizards, but we're not gods. We can't be perfect all the time. That's why the final component of Power Word Prep is a backup plan. Your backup plan might be that you play board games instead, or skip a week, or even reschedule. Sometimes, if I'm good to run a session, but I'm just not prepared for whatever's coming up in the main campaign, I'll run a one-shot, either as a side quest within the campaign or something completely separate. I really like Grant Howitt's one-page games for this because I can run something like Goat Crashers or The Witch is Dead without preparing anything in advance.
So I alluded to this earlier. This is the spoiler that I started GMing as your backup plan because I felt bad that you were always in the position of like us sitting around being like, well, Matt, entertain us, please, week after week after week. And so we had kind of decided as a party all those years ago, what would it look like if we could have multiple GMs prep to her point earlier, one shots and these kind of like, we called them back pocket encounters. So it's like if Matt's having a stressful week as our GM, too much going on, or I don't know, needs to take a vacation, needs to not be here for a week. The rest of us don't have to not do anything. We could get together and just be like, all right, guys, we're going to go on a pirate adventure, roll up a 7th level character. And that was actually how I got into GMing myself. And now you know more of our lore.
Yes. And I'll say that even though I kind of wish that we were better about that. I think that's more of a time thing. Yeah. As far as, you know, being a game master does take a lot of time. It can take a very long, it can take a lot of time. So make sure that the player that might kind of step in, if that's the route that you're interested in going, make sure that that player is vaguely interested in being a game master, because it can be a lot of work, especially for new people.
Forever GM.
Maybe one of your players
I love it.
interested in running a one-shot. But whatever your backup plan is, it's important to discuss it with your group so they know what to expect. If players are expecting D&D, it might be frustrating to get a surprise board game night or a last-minute cancellation. Communication helps keep everybody on the same page.
We have an entire episode about catastrophizing. This is something that I am very prone to doing myself. And there were times in my GM journey, especially where our group was concerned, where like I got it into my head that what I did for y'all had to be perfect or this, that, or the other. Like if I had to cancel, it would be worst case scenario. And thankfully what experience has now taught me is that that really was my ADHD brain catastrophizing that moment, and that everybody was fine if we had a more chill, like role play heavy session and less combat or whatever it was I needed to feel prepared and not anxious and stressed. So if you recognize, I think kind of one of the things that Ginny's saying here, if you're recognizing that you're feeling that anxiety, that stress from lack of time or lack of ability to get through it for whatever reason, just talk to your freaking party. They're probably okay with supporting you. Yeah, in whatever way they can.
Be good to yourself, because life is hard enough. This is a fun thing. This is the stuff that keeps us alive. This is the fun that we have. Don't hurt yourself.
Don't take that on. And she's going to talk more about this in a bit, and I'll have more opinions and thoughts then too.
Congratulations, you can now add Power Word Prep to your spellbook.
I'm not going to use Power Word Prep because the one PC death that I've had was vanquished with Vecna and Power Word Kill. So I have extreme PTSD reactions to a spell, but everybody else who doesn't suffer that, please go on and use those.
3 more spells to help you run your game. Now we can look at spells to use during sessions. For example, we prepared all this information, and wait a second, where did I just put those notes? You saw them, right? I just had them.
Must have evaporated. There's my
Well,
catastrophizing
at
again.
least there's a spell for this. It's called Prested taking notes. Notes can be a minefield for someone with ADHD. It's common to write something down so that we don't forget it, but then forget where exactly we wrote it down. You might take some notes
Or if you're me, take a lot of notes in prep and then forget to actually look at them while you're running the game.
in a notebook, some on the Notes app on your phone, and yet more on a nearby scrap of paper. And what are the chances of finding all of those notes later when you need them? Plus, tons of DMs and players alike have told me that they struggle with being able to take notes effectively while listening or talking, which can make it especially hard to do during sessions. But if we don't take notes, it's very likely that we'll forget important information. One meta-analysis of more than 80 studies found that while ADHD does not impair long-term memory, it can impair our ability to turn short-term memories into long-term memories. So if our brains are libraries, we don't usually have trouble finding books there, but sometimes we forget to put new books onto the shelves in the first place. Now, before we cast this spell, we need to choose a target. This is very important. Make a decision right now about the one place you will keep your notes. Is it Google Drive?
Matthew.
Is it a paper notebook? Is it the Notes app, or Evernote, or World Anvil, or Notion, or Microsoft Word?
Okay.
Matthew. Matthew, listen to our Queen Ginny. Listen.
The very first thing my ADHD coach had me do was ask me what I was working with. What apps were I using for project management, notes, and calendar? Those three things. And she did not let me change them for 6 full months. And it was very difficult, but it taught me a lot. I still say that this is a lot to ask. This specific request from her is a lot to ask for some of us, right? Not for Allison, but for me, for sure. Because there's always something new, always something shinier. There's always going to be an app that's going to be better at organizing your GM notes, helping you prep, helping you plan, connecting to D&D Beyond or whatever, right? There's always going to be, that thing is happening next month. It's coming out next month, right? Like, I don't even know what it is, but it will be there.
It'll be
You've
there.
got, if you're like me and it's a never-ending shiny towards new tech and new apps, you've got to at least be able to say, okay, I'm exporting from Obsidian into Notion, or I'm exporting Obsidian into Tana, Heptabase. There are so many good ways of doing this. So many. So just, again, don't beat yourself up about this, but make sure that your system is stronger than your note-taking app of choice. That's really the takeaway, is that if you have the system, you can at least find where things might be if you are like me and dump notes everywhere across the world. Yeah.
Good talk, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Is it recording sessions and jotting down timestamps to make it easy to listen back? Whatever it is, pick one and then speak these words of power. From this day forward, I shall keep my notes in this hallowed place and no other. If you ever notice yourself taking notes in any place other than the one you just designated, catch yourself and redirect. This designated note-taking space does not need to be perfect or neat or comprehensible to anyone but you. I would recommend something you can access online just so you can't forget it at home, and ideally something searchable, but that's really up to you. The point is, if you can't consolidate your notes in one place, then everything else I'm about to suggest will be meaningless.
And if anybody wants a deep dive into this topic, please leave some comments down below if you're vaguely interested in how to apply game prep to practically any note-taking app you have ever heard of. Because trust me, I'm actually not joking. There are so many strengths, and there's one that can fit you, and I would really love to talk to you about this. So, I'm your guy. Please.
When you need to find information, you should know exactly where to go. Once you've chosen the target for this spell, how you use it is completely up to you. I'm one of those obsessive weirdos who has my notes split into folders with color coding and spreadsheets, but you might get just as much value out of one long Word document with a few bullet points per session. Whatever system you choose, it should make note-taking easier, not harder. One thing that has really helped me is taking notes or reviewing notes right after a session, the next day at the latest.
Yes.
Anything I missed writing down during the session is still floating around in my head, so I can fill in the gaps right now with information that I will definitely have forgotten by the time the next session rolls around.
This is one of the newer things in my life after 3 years of being a game master. This is very difficult for us, I think, a lot of times. And I need to make more time of it. In fact, if you use a calendar and you put your games on some sort of time blocked thing, go ahead and set just 10 minutes aside to the full game. Like, I'm going to be playing for 3 hours. Play for 2 hours and 50 minutes and take that. It is so vital. Yeah. It is so vital because you're still psyched. You know what has happened. You're leaving. Hopefully you're leaving with like this high of being with your friends and playing a game. And it's so fresh. And I have found, here's a benefit, here's a bonus to that. I have found that sometimes if I give myself at least 10 minutes, I can almost prep for the next game session completely, which is unbelievable because you're not doing it 5 minutes before you play next Sunday, right?
Yeah. I mentioned this.
Same thing? Yeah.
So I mentioned this in my comments to Ginny on the original How to Play D&D When You Have ADHD video. My introduction to Ginny D was a video she did about how to take notes as a player. That's how I first found her. And in that, and I'm not great about keeping up with this, but when I do it consistently, I can see a difference. One of her pieces of sage wisdom was to write a journal entry at the conclusion of your session from the point, because I don't love taking notes. I've never been the note taker. I'm not the lore keeper. That's Fitz and the other Matt's jobs. But I do journal. And so that was like framing something in a way that my particular brain liked. And so I have tried to do the same thing when GMing. I usually GM our one shots. So a lot of times I don't have to make session, make notes session to session. But when I do, I format it more as a journal entry or what she's kind of talking about. I was part of a years-long campaign where we just had a shared Google Doc and we would just add our, stuff. And it was probably your worst nightmare. Totally worked for our group.
It's okay.
There was not one fancy thing about it. Yeah. And it did. It totally worked for our group. So back to you, Ginny.
But also, worst case scenario, you forget stuff. If you don't remember and your players don't remember, maybe it just wasn't that important. Fun fact about this spell, lots of different classes can cast it, even players.
Yep.
If session notes are especially challenging for you, see if any of your players are willing to take on the job and share the notes that they take with you and even with the rest of the party. You can give them a fancy title like Official Archivist or Party Scribe. Some DMs offer inspiration to players who do session recaps. It's nice to make sure a player feels appreciated if they're taking on an extra job. Now that we've mastered prestidigitating notes, or at least outsourced it, we're ready to tackle the next one, divine focus. Even for people without ADHD, there's a lot to keep track of as a dungeon master. Not only do you need a strong understanding of the rules, which are detailed enough to fill a textbook, but there's also a lot of miscellaneous information to keep tabs on while you play. Who's up next in initiative? Was there a specific piece of information that players were supposed to receive in this location? Would anyone's passive insight be high enough to notice that this NPC is lying? Does this monster have a reaction that can be used here? Studies have shown that people with ADHD have trouble with working memory. That refers to the information that you have to hold in your mind while completing tasks. So if you've ever walked into another room to get something and then immediately forgot what you came for, that's your working memory falling short. DMing is a task that puts a huge strain on your working memory. That's why the first component of this particular spell is all about outsourcing some of that working memory. This is known as cognitive offloading, and you already do it all the time. When you write an event down on a calendar, your brain doesn't have to hold on to that information anymore because the calendar is holding it for you. In the same way, we can use tools to offload some of the cognitive demands of DMing.
For example, using an initiative tracker
This
means
is so
you don't have to
beautiful.
memorize
I love it.
initiative
It's so well
order.
done.
Using
Well done.
condition markers means you don't have to remember which monster is hexed or which player character is grappled. And
Yes.
these examples are common even at neurotypical tables, but you can stretch this strategy way, way further. Have trouble remembering which minion is which? Use numbered scraps of paper instead of minis, or put the minis on top of colorful poker chips to differentiate them. Don't want to forget to give players a certain clue this session? Write clue in huge letters on a sticky note and put it in the middle of the DM
I started
screen.
doing
And
this.
don't take
Yeah.
it down until they've found it. There are tons of digital tools for this stuff too. If you play
My monitor is constantly covered in Post-it notes, both for D&D things as well as just life and work things that if I don't write it on a Post-it note and stick it in front of my face, it does not exist.
And that's funny because I am absolutely not a Post-it person, though I'm taking notes all the time. But I have started doing so for the game, and it's because of exactly what she just said, is that you may have done the prep, you may have done the work, and those stat blocks are in there. But when things are going around and you have, we play virtually, sadly. We make the best of it. We have a good time, but we play virtually, and so I've got 5 different screens doing different things. And my brain is trying, this is where my brain thinks that it's like in optimal, functionality. But if there's something that I really cannot forget, I will write down the stat there, or I'll write down the legendary action there, or that seems to be working really well.
One thing that I've started doing for my prep that someone recommended in our Discord that has been life game, whatever, changing. So once I finish prep and I use Notion and I have everything behind a toggle for kind of each scene that we'll get to. That way, if we do jump around, I can easily expand and close and don't have to look at a wall of text. But at the very top of my notes, I now always have a flow chart of the session.
So good.
So at a glance, I can kind of grab okay, so they're going to skip this room, bing, bang, boom. We're going to go to this room instead, or whatever the case might be. And that's where I put the, in this session, they have to talk to this NPC. So that way I'll know, even if they don't go to the tavern that I had been planning on them talking to that NPC, now we're in the forest. Oh, look who comes wandering up the path.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And that flow chart is the one thing that I definitely do always have open. So just at a glance, I don't get lost in my own pre-session notes.
Flowcharts are amazing.
Thank you, Notion.
Online, many VTTs have features for tracking things like initiative and status conditions. D&D Beyond has an encounter tool that tracks initiative order and hit points and lets you easily click through different stat blocks. The more information you can offload, the easier it'll be to focus on what's left. Our next
Owlbear Rodeo
component
has
is
them all for free.
simplification. You can use all the tools in the world, but sometimes the stuff you're keeping track of is just too complicated. Not even the best encounter tracker is going to make it easy to run a boss monster with a half dozen minions, legendary resistances, lair actions, and environmental effects all at the same time. And for some DMs, even less.
Yeah, before we leave the VTT topic, and I know we've talked about this multiple times, but I'll just say it again because I feel like it's like learning languages or learning music, to be perfectly honest. If you spend the energy to learn something massive like Foundry VTT, you're going to have the skills already in place to learn something not quite as complicated, such as Encounter Plus. It's going to make more sense for you. And I think that a lot of people say, I will never touch Foundry. I will never do that. But the benefits can be incredible for our brains. And I realized while watching this video that specifically, even when we play in person, I still have to use the VTT. I use the tools. I have to offload things like the math and the science. And I think I mentioned last time is when we've gotten into this new beautiful habit of playing brand new alpha or beta games such as DC-20 or Daggerheart. And there are not tools that exist currently for a lot of those games. They will, but right now it's not there for me. So I will take the time to kind of build my own systems. If they just do the bare minimum of math and some other things that I know will just throw me for a loop in game, that's just one less thing that I have to worry about. So, yeah, again, if anybody wants to talk VTTs, I'm ready for you.
Complex combat than that is still difficult to stay on top of. Thankfully, there are plenty of ways to simplify D&D mechanics, and a lot of them won't even be visible to your players. For example, these days I pretty much always just use average damage for groups of simple enemies instead of rolling damage. Now, don't get me wrong, it's fun to roll dice, but when you have 5 minions with multi-attack, you're already rolling 10 times just to see if you hit.
Yep.
Likewise, as your baddies go up in challenge ratings, so will the number of things they can do. It's okay to skim a spellcasting villain's stat block beforehand and highlight just 2 or 3 spells that you think you'll actually use.
I do that.
You can even just choose monsters that have simpler stat blocks, or edit stat blocks to simplify them. There's no shame in that. If it's hard for you to make tactical decisions mid-combat, you can simplify that stuff too. Maybe you decide beforehand that when this monster reaches 30 hit points, it tries to run. Or you decide that once 2 of the creatures are dead, the remaining creatures call for reinforcements.
This again is something that I can't wait to do a full episode on. It will be a revisit of an earlier episode that we've done about combat and how it's so hard for me, because my goal in life is to be a GM that makes all combat in all TTRPGs fun. I want, but not just for the players who seem to be having a great time. It's really hard for me. And if it's really hard for you, and you know that you have ADHD, we understand your pain completely. And what Ginny is saying here is so dead on. And these are all things that they've learned. The cool thing is I am seeing more and more people, writers of modules, adventures. I'm seeing more and more people kind of adding this stuff into an encounter, which is really nice. And so try to pay attention to that. But yes, little bits, know kind of what's going to happen. And one of the hardest things for our brains is that middle, right? We know how to start a combat. We know how to end a combat. The middle is so scary for the ADHD brain. It is so scary. So give future you a couple of cheat codes so that you can get through that middle, because that's oftentimes the middle is what makes or breaks a fun time.
Yeah, for sure.
You can absolutely set conditions like that in advance so that you don't have to be making on-the-fly strategic choices in the middle of a fight. The final component is just cutting yourself some slack. You have a chronic condition that makes it extra hard to be a dungeon master. It's honestly incredible that you're even doing it. Take frequent breaks, let your players know when you're struggling, and don't shame yourself for needing to look things up or make corrections. I promise you, you don't need...
Are we ready for Allison's woo-woo moment of this video?
Please do. Do I need to light a candle?
Probably. One of my favorite questions to ask myself of late is, who told you that? Especially when I'm beating myself up over something, I will stop myself. In fact, I have that on my mirror in my bathroom. Who told you that? Because like 99 times out of 100, nobody told me the thing that I'm stressing out over. I made it up. I gave myself a conflict that doesn't need to exist based on feedback from no one else. I had this stunning realization tethering this. So we do monthly one-shots with our patrons. We're doing Daggerheart this month because it's the shiny new toy. And I realized that every month when I put these patron one-shots together, I was trying to jam them full every single second with just so much interest and intrigue. And Ginny's going to talk about this even more in a moment. But who told me that? Because there was this little part of me that was like, oh, but people are spending their time and their money and their attention to do this. So it has to be the most exciting thing that they've ever taken part in. And that was making the whole situation more stressful for me and all of our players, because people just want to come have a good time. Like, yeah, we want to like flex our players' muscles and see what these characters can do. But nobody needs 4 straight hours of nonstop action.
No.
Maybe somebody does, but I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you probably don't. And so who told you that? Who told me that I had to have 4 straight hours of nonstop action? And I feel like that's kind of like what Ginny is saying with this, of like the recognize that some of the anxiety and the stress give yourself that grace to say, but who said it has to be that way? Who says I can't ask for a week off? Who says that I can't ask for the accommodations that I need in session? Who told you that?
Who told you?
Stepping back off my
Not me.
soapbox.
Not me.
Woo-woo moment
You need
concluded.
to have all the rules memorized. Even highly experienced
Yep.
DMs have to look stuff up. If you're not sure about how to rule something, you can take a second to Google it.
Even
or
Matt
just
Mercer
make a
and
call that
Brennan
feels
do
right
this.
And double check it later if you want. This is actually why I love having other DMs as players, because then I
Yes.
can just say, how does holding your breath work again? And one of us will probably know it. One of the most game-changing realizations for me was when I learned that I could just press pause on the game anytime and take a second to collect my thoughts
Who told you that you couldn't?
or do some
told you?
research. One time, my players decided to try and talk their way out of a problem that I had definitely assumed they would solve with combat.
Yep.
I realized I had no idea how this character would respond to being persuaded, so I called for a 10-minute break. I went into the other room, I reviewed the character's goals, I set some DCs for persuasion, deception, and intimidation checks, and when we reconvened, I felt totally prepared for the situation. You can even end the whole session early if you feel unprepared to respond to surprising player choices, or if the party moves through your material faster than you expected. You should now
Yes.
have power word prep, Prested taking notes, and divine focus in your spell.
Matt, you did that once when we were playing in person. Things weren't going the way that we thought, at the onset. And so you were like, hey, I need some time
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
prep this now that you've given me this direction. And guess what? Nobody murdered you. Not
No
one
one
of us
cared.
got angry at you. Nobody. Yeah, we're
No.
like, yeah, heck yeah, we'll go
Brother
take a
went
break.
for a walk. We went for a run or something. Everybody
Yeah.
made some food. It was
Had some snacks.
it was great. And then I felt better, right? Like treat
Yep.
yourself. Again,
Yeah.
this is a game that everybody's having fun with. So don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the need, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
a need, but the penchant for catastrophizing
Yeah.
and letting our
It's intense.
RSD is so real. So I don't want anybody watching this thinking we don't. I get how you feel fully, but
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're there.
Hopefully
We're
you
there.
still have a little parchment left, because there is one more spell all dungeon masters with all wizards need to know. Here it is.
So cute.
Speak with friends. When we talk about symptoms of ADHD, we're usually talking about hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention. But there's another less recognized symptom that researchers are starting to realize is a core feature of ADHD.
Core
It's called
feature,
emotional
not a bug.
dysregulation, and it basically just means that we sometimes have trouble controlling our emotions and might react disproportionately. And here's the thing about
What?
D&D. It might seem like it's a game about swords and castles and dragons, but at its heart, all tabletop games are social games. Judging by what I see in tabletop communities online, games are way more likely to end over social conflict than over pretty much anything else.
or scheduling.
And as the dungeon master, you're in a unique position that puts you under more social pressure. You're the guide, leading players through a game that is supposed to be fun for them. I don't know about you, but that makes me very anxious. Doesn't it make you anxious? I want to run a
Sometimes.
great game that my players love. I want my bad guys to be scary. I want my friendly NPCs to be lovable. I want combat to be challenging enough to be exciting, but not so impossible that they can't win. I want my
Yes.
players to laugh at my jokes and gasp at my surprises. And of course, if something isn't working for my players, I want to know about it so I
Yep.
can fix it. Unfortunately, emotional dysregulation can make it very difficult to receive feedback. It's easy for people who experience this symptom to take criticism very personally, and maybe even react so poorly to receiving it that they unintentionally teach players not to speak up when something isn't working. And even though criticism can be hard to hear, it's absolutely essential for making sure that everyone is enjoying the game and allowing us to become better dungeon masters. Thankfully, we can do magic. In this case, the magic of systematizing feedback. There are plenty of different systems that
This
you
is
can
so
use
good.
for feedback. One DM told me that they use an anonymous form, so players feel comfortable being critical, and even if the DM feels upset, they can't attach that emotion to a specific
Yep.
player.
Okay, so here's something very interesting in listening to this. And this is really, really cool chapter. But you may also, if you have ADHD, you might have a situation where you want to be an incredible game master. You want to learn. You want to take what you have done and you want to get better at it and better at it. But with ADHD, you still have a problem taking criticism. So this is such a great idea, this form idea, because I truly want y'all, my players, to tell me whether you were laughing, scared, excited, engaged. I want to know those things. I actually do want to know what I could be better at. I would love that. But yeah, it could be hurtful. So this is, I don't know why I didn't think about this. This is a really cool idea. And especially if you're playing with great people, right? I mean, your friends aren't going to hurt your feelings no matter what. If you're really good friends, they're gonna understand what tact is. But if you want to be good, this could really be a game changer. Thank you. Okay.
Some DMs like to have occasional get-togethers where they don't play at all, but just discuss how the game's
Session
been going
re-zero.
and anything that they'd like to see changed. Kind of like recurring session zeros. Personally, my favorite feedback system is called Stars and Wishes. In this system, after a session, you go around the whole table and everyone gives 1 star or something they enjoyed from the session and 1 wish or something.
We do Stars and Wishes. I have never looked at it the way that she's about to frame it. And I love the way she's about to frame it.
I know. I haven't either. Yep.
Something they'd like to see in a future session. This has been a really useful way for me to get feedback because even when a wish contains a criticism, it's phrased in a forward-looking way. Instead of focusing on the problem, saying, I didn't like this part of the game, it focuses on the solution. A great example is when a player told me that their wish was to have more space to roleplay with their fellow players. This helped me realize something about myself. I was so scared that players would get bored that I was rushing from scene to scene and encounter to encounter, trying to fill space. But in doing that, I took away my player's ability to choose to fill that space. If that player had said, Ginny, just so you know, you talk way too much, that would have really hurt my feelings. I've always been talkative and I've gotten my fair share of flack for it. But by focusing
Are she and I the same person? Are we?
I mean, it could be. It could be. It really could.
feedback not on my mistakes, but on the player's wishes, it made it a lot easier to hear that criticism. Also, since Stars and Wishes takes place at the end of the session, I have plenty of space to think about and process that feedback before the next session.
Okay, so I'm coming up with a new plan today because of this video. We're going to set sessions. We've already learned from the amazing Dungeon Dudes neurodivergent video that there's no need. Who
told you?
Who told you that sessions have to be 4 hours? They don't have to be 4 hours. They can be 2 hours. But if they're 2 or 3 or 4 or 6, now we've got 10 minutes at the end where you are writing notes about that session. So just take that off the calendar. It does not exist. And then take another 10 minutes for Stars and Wishes. What do I call it? Hearts and stars?
Hearts and stars, stars and wishes.
Stars and wishes. And I guarantee it's going to make your game better. I don't see how it couldn't.
10 minutes at the beginning for like the warm-up D100 questions or something like that. So now just know going into it, especially for those of us who suffer with time blindness, that like you need to carve out 30 minutes of how long you think you're going to play, which is 30 minutes less you have to plan and script, and then take 25% or more away to leave room for your players. And that's what I realized was my biggest shortcomings as a GM, as I was trying to control the whole session and leaving no room for players to have any sort of autonomy within it, which is silly. And it was coming from a good place. Like I was doing it because I wanted to give players this highly satisfying everything. But in doing that thing, I was robbing them of the moments that they were craving the most.
Yes.
We can learn. We can get better.
This is really important because a lot of times my gut reaction will be defensive. But once I take the time to sit with what my players have said, I can calm down and respond to it more rationally. And Speak with Friends isn't just about feedback. It's also about asking for support. Remember, no wizard adventures alone. We're way too squishy for that. You're a member of a party, and it's okay to ask your fellow party members for help. Everybody is at the table to have fun playing D&D, you included. If you tell your players about an obstacle you're facing, they might have ideas for how to help, or how to make it easier, or how to avoid it completely. If something about the game is hard for you, you don't have to shoulder it alone. Man, I thought a wizard tower would be awesome, but this place absolutely reeks of bat guano. I'm gonna go. Whew. Much better. You know, whenever I talk about ADHD, people tell me that you don't have to have ADHD to experience these kinds of struggles or to benefit from this advice. And that's true. Anyone can have trouble with prep or note-taking or focus or communication. But people with ADHD experience these kinds of problems chronically, to the point where it's disruptive to our lives. So yeah, these tips could be useful for any dungeon master. But I didn't make this video for any dungeon master. I made it for my fellow wizards. You deserve to run games if you want to. You deserve to have a great time and feel comfortable in your role as dungeon master. It's okay that DMing might look different for you than it does for neurotypical DMs. There is nothing wrong with you, except for having like ridiculously few hit points. That's pretty bad. Make sure to check out my video with tips for D&D players with ADHD if you haven't seen it already, because honestly, there's a lot of crossover there. Plenty of my tips for players also apply to DMs. Plus, in my experience, neurodivergent people tend to find each other, so chances are some of your players probably have ADHD too, and might really benefit from the stuff in that video.
Thanks, Jenny.
So good. So good. So right. So good. So right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Matt, for watching this with me.
Thank you,
Thank
Allison,
you.
for watching this with me. This is another click out of the ballpark.
Well, and I realized, you know, way back, I think in season 1 of ADHd20, we had a session where we put together spells that you could cast in ADHD or in D&D that were based in our ADHD. Like I cast time blindness, where I make my, you know, whoever I'm fighting suddenly not be able to, you know, do whatever it was that they were trying to do. If it takes 1 action, it would now take 2 or things like that. So I think it's time to revisit that, especially having watched Jenny do a masterful job giving us some IRL spells as wizards.
As wizards. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And I just love that she and the dudes, at least, and us, I love that we're trying to bring to light these things. And I love that we're all speaking out about it. And just know you're not alone. You really aren't. And yes, exactly. You are, it is who you are. There's amazing things as well. So we got your back. You got ours. Ginny's got your back. We've got hers.
And this is all a rich tapestry of people with very sparkly, shiny brains.
Shiny brains. So until next time.
Yeah, we'll see y'all soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.